Something happens to women when they hit 40 that nobody wants to talk about. One day, she's the same woman you've known for years, making breakfast for the kids, folding laundry, texting you reminders about picking up groceries, planning family vacations 6 months in advance. You know her routine so well it feels like muscle memory. She's predictable, dependable, safe, the foundation of your life. And then, it happens. She starts staying up late, scrolling on her phone long after you've gone to bed. She joins a new gym class, suddenly obsessed with her body in a way she hasn't been in years. She buys clothes that make you do a double take, outfits she wouldn't have been caught dead in last summer. A new hairstyle. Subtle changes at first, but then it escalates. She downloads Instagram, maybe even a dating app, just to look. She starts talking about old friends, old flames, her wild years, as if she's mourning something you didn't even know was missing. She becomes restless. And you're left standing there asking yourself the question every man in this position asks: what the hell happened to my wife? It feels sudden, but it isn't random. Millions of men around the world are experiencing the same shift, watching the steady, grounded women they married transform almost overnight into strangers, chasing something they can't quite name. You thought you knew her likes, her dislikes, her deepest fears, her biggest dreams. You built a family, a home, a life together. And then, like a switch flipped, she's looking at you differently. Or worse, she's not looking at you at all. This is the shock factor that most men never see coming. You believed the woman who committed to you at 25 would still be the same woman at 40. But that's the fantasy. The reality is that something inside her is shifting. Something powerful. Something ancient. Because it's not just midlife crisis. It's not a random desire for novelty. It's not boredom. It's biology. Her brain chemistry is rewiring itself. The same dopamine hits that once came from your attention, your affection, your presence. They no longer deliver. Because the woman you married at 25 is not the same woman you'll be living with at 40. She looks like her, she sounds like her, but she is not her. And the sooner you understand that, the sooner you'll realize this. It's not random. It's not personal. It's biology. And it's coming for every woman. When a woman hits 40, the biggest change isn't the wrinkles around her eyes or the gray hairs sneaking in at the roots. The biggest change is invisible. It's inside her head. Her entire identity has been built on one fragile foundation: being desired. From the moment she was a teenager, she was told her value was tied to her beauty. Be pretty, be desirable, be wanted. And for 20 years, from ages 15 to 35, that script worked perfectly. Men chased her. Compliments flowed like water. She never had to wonder if she was valuable. The world reminded her every single day. But then, slowly, that attention shifts. At 40, she can still be beautiful, still turn heads, but it's different. The glances are less frequent. The compliments are more polite than passionate. She feels the eyes of younger women pulling the spotlight away. And for the first time in her adult life, she looks in the mirror and sees a stranger staring back. This isn't about vanity. It's about identity collapse. Imagine being a professional athlete whose entire worth is tied to physical performance. For years you dominate. You're the star. Crowds cheer. Endorsements flow. Your talent defines you. Then age catches up. You're not terrible, but you're not what you used to be. You can't keep up. Suddenly, the cheers fade. The contracts dry up. Who are you without the performance that made you matter? That's what happens to women at 40. Only for them, it's not sports. It's beauty. And when beauty fades, even just a little, the entire scaffolding of self-worth begins to crumble. At 25, she didn't care about compliments. They were background noise. She rolled her eyes, knowing she could get more anytime she wanted. At 40, and invisibility is her greatest fear. She doesn't want to accept that beauty fades, that time is undefeated, that validation from strangers will never fill the void. Instead, she fights it. She rages against it. And in that rage, she risks destroying everything she's built. The woman who was once satisfied with your steady devotion now craves novelty, danger, excitement, anything that makes her feel alive again. Not because she doesn't love you, but because she no longer knows who she is. That's the identity crisis, and it's only just beginning. By the time a woman hits 40, the cracks in her identity aren't just showing, they're spreading. What begins as quiet discomfort soon turns into something far more dangerous. Hunger. And not the hunger for food or money or even comfort. It's the hunger for validation. This is the part most men never understand. At 22, a compliment is cheap. She gets them everywhere. At school, at work, on social media, from strangers in the street. Male attention is so abundant that she barely notices it. Your devotion is expected, and everyone else's attention is just white noise. But at 42, everything changes. That same compliment she once brushed off now explodes in her brain like fireworks. Why? Because it's rare. Scarcity makes it precious. And when a 40-year-old woman gets proof that someone outside her marriage still desires her, it delivers a dopamine hit stronger than almost anything you can give her. Here's the brutal truth. Your attention doesn't count anymore. Not because it's worthless, but because it's guaranteed. You're the husband, the father of her children, the man she wakes up next to every morning. Your affection is predictable. It's locked in. But his attention? The stranger at the coffee shop who compliments her smile. The co-worker who lingers too long in conversation. The trainer at the gym who says she's looking strong. That attention isn't obligated. It's chosen. And chosen attention is intoxicating. Once
she starts dressing in ways designed to draw more eyes. She spends more time on her phone, chasing likes and comments that validate what she feels slipping away. The dopamine hits become her oxygen. For you, it feels like betrayal. For her, it feels like survival. What you see as unnecessary risk, flirting, attention-seeking, secret messages, she experiences as proof of her worth. Every compliment, every glance, every "you still got it" is her way of fighting back against the terror of invisibility. And the most dangerous part? Once she remembers what it feels like to be pursued, she can never forget it. The hunger doesn't fade, it grows. Your steady devotion, the safe comfort of years together, will never compete with the high of a stranger's desire. Not because you've failed, but because biology has rewired her to crave novelty over stability. This is the dangerous hunger, and once it's awakened, it changes everything. The dangerous hunger doesn't appear in isolation. It always comes with triggers, little sparks that set off the fire. And this is where most men miss the signs. By the time you notice, it's usually too late. It begins with nostalgia. She starts looking backward more than forward. Suddenly, old photo albums are out. Stories of her wild 20s come up at dinner. She laughs a little too hard at memories of old boyfriends. She talks about concerts, road trips, late nights, and adventures with a sparkle in her eyes you haven't seen in years. That sparkle isn't about the past. It's about the contrast. The comparison between who she was and who she feels like now. Nostalgia is her way of mourning her own fading identity. And when she starts idealizing her past more than appreciating her present, that's your first red flag. Then come the friends. Pay close attention here. When a woman enters this stage of life, she rarely goes through it alone. She finds allies, often divorced or empowered women who validate her every insecurity. These friends don't see themselves as wrecking balls, but that's exactly what they are. Over wine nights and coffee chats, they drip poison into her ear. You deserve better. Life's too short to settle. You need to live for yourself. They frame your steady marriage not as stability, but as a prison. And suddenly, she starts seeing her life through their lens, not her own. And if nostalgia and friends weren't enough, add the most powerful trigger of all: social media. The algorithm is designed to manipulate desire and comparison. At 40, your wife scrolls through feeds filled with carefully filtered lives. Women her age posting transformation photos, stories of second chances, inspirational quotes about leaving what no longer serves you. Every swipe is confirmation of her growing suspicion. Maybe she's missing out. Maybe she could start over. She compares her behind-the-scenes reality to everyone else's highlight reel. And of course, reality always loses to fantasy. These three forces, nostalgia, friends, and social media, feed each other in a toxic loop. Nostalgia makes her long for the validation she once had. Her friends encourage her to chase it. Social media proves it's possible. But the most subtle and most dangerous trigger is secrecy. At first, it's harmless. She becomes protective of her phone. She insists on more me time. She spends hours out with friends you've never met. You tell yourself she's just busy, just exploring hobbies, just adjusting to midlife. But what she's really doing is creating distance, emotional distance, physical distance, a private world where you don't exist. And here's the chilling part. When these triggers align, collapse isn't just possible, it's inevitable. You see, marriages don't explode overnight. They erode slowly, invisibly, while both people are still smiling in family photos. The danger isn't when she leaves. The danger is when the countdown begins, and you don't even know the clock is ticking. This is how families fall apart quietly. Not because of one mistake, but because of 1,000 little triggers that no one took seriously. And by the time you realize what's happening, the collapse is already in motion. The most terrifying part of this entire transformation isn't the nostalgia, the new friends, or even the secrecy. Those are symptoms. The real danger lies deeper, in her brain itself. Because by the time a woman hits 40, her brain chemistry has changed. The same neurological pathways that once made her light up at your touch, your compliments, your presence, no longer fire the way they used to. Think about how it felt when you first dated. A simple text from you sent her heart racing. Holding hands in public felt electric. A weekend getaway felt like magic. That wasn't just romance. That was chemistry. Her brain was flooded with dopamine, oxytocin, and adrenaline every time she experienced novelty, intimacy, or desire. But here's the brutal truth. Those pathways dull with time. What once triggered fireworks in her brain now barely registers as a flicker. That romantic dinner you carefully planned? Her brain processes it as routine maintenance, the same intimate touches you've shared for years. Her nervous system categorizes them as background noise. Even your unwavering devotion, the very thing you thought was her anchor, now feels invisible. Why? Because her brain has adapted. It has normalized you. And what the brain normalizes, it stops rewarding. At 25, novelty was everywhere. Every experience with you was fresh, exciting, uncharted territory. At 40, routine dominates. The kids, the mortgage, the same vacations, the same rituals. Safe, stable, predictable. To you, that feels like love. To her rewired brain, it feels like nothing at all. This is where the hunger turns dangerous. She no longer gets dopamine from the life you've built together, so she seeks it elsewhere. That's why a single compliment from a stranger hits her like a drug. That's why social media likes make her feel more alive than a decade of your devotion. It's not because she doesn't care about you. It's because her brain doesn't reward her for caring about you anymore. Here's the cruel irony. The safer and more reliable you are, the less stimulation her brain provides in response. In other words, the better you are as a husband, the more invisible you become. And this is why affairs, betrayals, and midlife implosions don't happen in her 20s. They happen after 35, after 40, when the neurological hunger for extreme stimulation collides with the fading rewards of routine love. It's not about morality. It's not even about choice. It's about wiring. She doesn't wake up one morning deciding to blow up her life. Instead, her brain whispers to her, "You need more." And the things that once satisfied her no longer scratch the itch. The same woman who once felt alive holding your hand at 20 now needs an emotional earthquake at 40 just to feel a tremor. And if she doesn't get it from you, she'll find it somewhere else. That's the terrifying truth about psychological rewiring. It's not personal. It's biology. And once it starts, nothing in your marriage will ever feel the same again. By the time the rewiring is complete, the consequences are no longer subtle. They're brutal. This is the stage most men recognize too late. The fallout. It doesn't happen with a bang at first. It starts with distance. She becomes busy more girls' nights, more solo trips to the gym, more unexplained hours staring at her phone. She swears nothing's wrong, but you feel it in your gut. She's slipping away. Then come the fights. Or worse, the eerie silence. Some women lash out constantly, picking battles over meaningless things. The dishes, the laundry, the way you breathe. Others become strangely pleasant, unusually agreeable, almost too agreeable. Both are bad signs. The fighting means she's building a case against you in her mind, rewriting history so she can justify leaving. The eerie calm? That usually means she's already found someone else, and the guilt is forcing her to overcompensate. And then it happens. The betrayal? Maybe it's the personal trainer who tells her she looks amazing. Maybe it's a coworker who just understands her. Maybe it's an old flame who resurfaces on Facebook with a flattering message. It doesn't matter who it is. What matters is that he becomes the face of her fantasies. The spark she thought was gone suddenly roars back to life, and she attaches it to him. The devoted mother of 3 suddenly risks it all for late-night messages and secret meetings. The church-going wife who built her life around faith suddenly rationalizes an affair with her husband's best friend. The perfect partner who swore loyalty for decades suddenly decides she deserves better and blows up her family for someone she barely knows. And every time, the husband says the same thing. I never saw it coming. But the signs were always there. The mirror stares, the hunger for compliments, the obsession with youth, the endless scrolling through social media, the nostalgia for the past. You just didn't recognize them for what they were, warning flares of the storm about to hit. And when the storm finally lands, it doesn't just destroy her marriage, it destroys everything around it. The kids become collateral damage. They're shuffled between houses, confused, broken, wondering why mom chose her ego over their stability. They hear whispers of new boyfriends and moving on, while silently grieving the life they thought was permanent. The husband is left in ruins, not just financially, but spiritually. He questions everything. Was the love ever real? Were the memories lies? Did he waste 20 years building a future with someone who was always going to burn it down? And she, the woman at the center of it all, tells herself it was worth it, at least for a while. The dopamine rush feels like oxygen, the validation feels like resurrection. But the high never lasts, and when it fades, she's left with the ashes of a family she can never rebuild. This is the fallout. And it doesn't happen by accident. It happens because biology demanded it, culture encouraged it, and everyone ignored the warning signs until it was too late. And once you've seen it up close, you'll never look at marriage the same way again. Here's the part that will make your blood boil. When a man's wife unravels at 40, when she starts tearing down everything she's built for a hit of validation, society doesn't just sit back and watch. It actively cheers her on. Every magazine, every talk show, every influencer, every therapist with a social media following sings the same tune. You deserve to be happy. Don't settle. Find yourself. Live your truth. What sounds like encouragement is actually gasoline on the fire. Nobody tells her the truth, that beauty fades for everyone, that attention is a drug that must be weaned off, that long-term love requires stability, not constant novelty. Instead, they feed her poison disguised as empowerment. They tell her her feelings matter more than her commitments, her desires matter more than her children's security, her happiness matters more than the family she promised to protect, and she believes it. Why wouldn't she? Every headline screams about strong, independent women reinventing themselves after divorce. Every celebrity profile glamorizes the 45-year-old actress who found herself with a new man half her age. Social media feeds her a steady diet of before and after transformations, carefully curated to make destruction look like rebirth. Meanwhile, her circle of friends becomes an echo chamber, especially the divorced ones. They gather over wine, not to celebrate life, but to justify their own mistakes. They push her to join them because nothing validates a bad decision, like watching someone else make the same one. They whisper in her ear, "You're settling. He doesn't appreciate you. You only live once." She drinks it in, not realizing that what they're really saying is, "Please jump off the same cliff I did, so I don't have to look at the wreckage of my own life alone." And then comes the algorithm. Social media doesn't just reflect her insecurities, it amplifies them. The more she clicks on transformation stories, the more she scrolls through posts about love after 40, the more the system feeds her exactly what she wants to see. Women her age starting over, smiling with new men, posing with fresh haircuts, glowing with the illusion of freedom. But the reality behind those posts? It's never shown. You don't see the woman spending Christmas alone because her kids chose to stay with dad. You don't see the empowered single mom exhausted from juggling bills, work, and dating apps. You don't see the regret when she realizes the new boyfriend was just another flawed man, no different than the one she left, except now she has nothing to fall back on. Society sells her the fantasy of endless desire, endless youth, endless excitement. But it never shows her the bill. And when the fantasy fades, when the dopamine wears off, when the compliments stop, when reality sets in, it's too late. The family is gone, the stability is gone, the respect is gone. All that's left is a woman's society applauded for living her truth, while everyone else pays the price. That's the lie. And millions are falling for it. If you really want to understand why women implode at 40, you have to look at the other side of the coin: men. Because while women are terrified of becoming invisible, men at 40 are told they're entering their prime. Society looks at a 45-year-old man and calls him a silver fox, distinguished, experienced, finally stable. He may be losing hair and gaining weight, but he has something far more valuable in the dating market: resources, wisdom, and confidence. And he knows it. A man hitting midlife feels like he still has options. Even if he never acts on them, the knowledge alone fuels him. He doesn't panic about losing desirability. He feels like he's leveling up. That's why male midlife crises often look harmless. A new sports car, a new hobby, a trip to reclaim youth. He seeks excitement, but not to validate his existence. His crisis is embarrassing, maybe even silly, but it rarely destroys his family. Now compare that to women. A 45-year-old woman doesn't hear silver fox. She hears past her prime. While a man is told he's finally ripening, she's told she's expiring. Every birthday after 35 feels like a funeral for her youth. Every wrinkle is a countdown clock. And here's the cruel irony. She's the same age as her husband, living in the same house, raising the same kids. Yet society whispers completely different stories into their ears. He's told he's still in the game. She's told she's already lost. That psychological divide is massive. So when men and women both hit midlife, their responses couldn't be more different. His crisis embarrasses him. Hers destroys families, because his crisis is about chasing toys. Hers is about chasing validation. He buys a motorcycle, she flirts with the trainer. He books a trip to feel alive. She downloads a dating app to feel wanted. His crisis ends with a funny story. Hers ends with divorce papers. Why? Because men age into abundance, while women age into scarcity. At 40, a man often has more options than he did at 20. At 40, a woman feels like her options are evaporating. That terror fuels recklessness. She acts on impulses he can ignore. He can sit comfortably in the knowledge he could attract someone new. She feels she must prove it before time runs out. This is why men are blindsided. They assume she's aging like they are. Steady, comfortable, confident. But she's not. She's aging in reverse. The calmer he feels, the more panicked she becomes. And when panic collides with biology, the fallout is catastrophic. Because while he sees midlife as a second wind, she sees it as her last chance. That difference, in psychology, in biology, and cultural messaging, explains why male and female midlife crises look nothing alike. His might bruise an ego. Hers can destroy an entire household. And once you see that contrast, you'll never look at aging the same way again. When the fallout begins, When she's already 1 foot out the door, something strange happens. It's not enough for her to leave. She has to rewrite the story of everything that came before. The marriage you thought was built on love, she'll claim it was built on lies. The decades of devotion, loyalty, and sacrifice, she'll call it oppression. The happy vacations, anniversaries, and love letters, she'll say they were just an act. Why does she do this? Because admitting the truth, that she blew up her family for a fleeting rush of validation, would be unbearable. Her ego couldn't survive it. So she creates a new narrative, one where she's the hero and you're the villain. You'll hear the script change almost overnight. We were never really happy. I was pretending the whole time. You were always controlling. Never mind the videos of her laughing on vacations. Never mind the letters where she swore eternal love. Never mind the years of joy that everyone else witnessed. All of that is erased. History is rewritten, not because it's true, but because she needs it to be true. I've seen it countless times. The husband is blindsided. He thought they had a solid marriage, maybe with ups and downs, but nothing fatal. Then she leaves, and suddenly she's telling friends, family, and even the children that she's been miserable for years. It's not about reality. It's about justification. She needs you to be the bad guy because she can't face the possibility that she destroyed something good for nothing more than a dopamine hit. She can't admit that fear of aging drove her choices. She can't admit she chose ego over family. So she flips the script. You become the abuser, the neglectful husband, the man who never understood her. And the kids, they're caught in the crossfire. She tells herself, they'll understand one day. They want me to be happy. But children don't care about parental happiness. They care about stability. They care about both parents being in the same home. They care about predictability. What she calls finding herself, they experience as abandonment. The cruelest part is that this rewrite isn't just for others, it's for herself. She repeats it until she believes it. She convinces herself that every good memory was fake, every kind word was manipulation, every happy year was a mask. The past is painted black so her present can shine. But deep down, reality never changes. She knows the truth she won't admit. She was loved, she was chosen, she was safe, and she destroyed it anyway. And once history has been rewritten, there's no going back. Even if she regrets it later, even if the affair crashes and burns, even if she tries to return, she's not the same person. She's a stranger carrying another man's memories, rewriting a life she once swore was forever. That's the final cruelty. Not just the betrayal, but the erasure. Because in her new version of history, you were never her partner. You were always the problem. By now, you can see the pattern, the sudden shift, the identity crisis, the dangerous hunger, the triggers of collapse, the psychological rewiring, the fallout, the lies society feeds her, the divide between men and women, the rewriting of history. It all leads here, the inevitable truth. Not every woman will detonate her marriage at 40. Some fight against the programming. Some understand that beauty fades but character endures. Some know that validation is a drug, and they choose to detox instead of relapse. These women are rare, but they exist. Most, however, follow the path you've just heard. Not because they're evil, not because they never loved you, but because fear is stronger than love when fear is left unchecked. And the fear of aging, the fear of irrelevance, the fear of being ordinary becomes unbearable. Here's the truth nobody wants to admit. You can't save her from time. You can't compete with biology. You can't therapy your way out of a midlife identity collapse. Because once the bomb goes off, it's not your wife you're dealing with anymore. It's someone new. Someone who looks like her, sounds like her, but thinks completely differently. A stranger wearing her face. That's why so many men are blindsided. They kept believing in the fantasy that love conquers all, that vows last forever, that the woman who chose them at 25 would still be the same woman at 45. But she's not. She can't be. Biology doesn't allow it. So what do? First, stop blaming yourself. Her crisis isn't proof of your failure. It's proof of her fear. You didn't cause it, and you can't fix it. Second, recognize the signs early. Watch for the nostalgia, the new friends, the obsession with youth, the hunger for validation. These aren't quirks. They're warnings. Treat them like sirens. Third, protect yourself and your children. When a woman detonates her life at 40, she doesn't do it alone. She drags everyone with her, financially, emotionally, spiritually. If you're not prepared, you'll be another casualty in a war you didn't start. And finally, accept the brutal reality. Modern culture has not prepared women for aging. They were raised to believe they'd always be desired, always be special, always have options. Nobody told them that the wall comes for everyone. Nobody told them that novelty fades. Nobody told them that building something lasting matters more than chasing something fleeting. So when time catches up, they panic. They run. They destroy. That's the inevitable truth. Not every woman is a time bomb. But if her identity is built on beauty, if her worth is tied to validation, if her happiness depends on external attention, then it's not a question of if. It's only a question of when. And when it happens, don't say you weren't warned.